Okay, so we are starting out with a 2-page layout here. Okay, face-to-face pages. All right, so you don't have to open your book this way. I just want you to make sure you're working with face-to-face pages. Okay, and it's easier to make sure this is correct if you start with it open, and we're going to put our title here. This is Figure and Independent. Okay, this is our Figure and Independent project. Now, once I've written that, I'm going to go ahead and close this back on itself so that I can zoom in just a little bit here so that you can actually see and read my writing a little bit better. All right? So, our due dates here. Our start date is today, March the 1st. Our end date is going to be next Wednesday, March the 10th. Okay, now in order to meet this deadline here, I've got some mini deadlines along the way. You have to be keeping up with them. Okay, so the deadline that we are going to have for today is to actually get through the brainstorming portion of this, which will include some of those independent project videos. Okay, so first thing we have to talk about here are the requirements. So I'm going to use my 3x4 box. All right. Now, obviously, I mean, if you don't have your box, just borrow one from somebody or make some kind of enclosure or just label it requirements. All right. Preferably something that you can read, because as long as you can read it, when you submit this stuff to me, I've got to be able to read it. This will work. All right. So this is going to be the requirements section. Okay, so the first requirement has to do with the figure. So requirement number 1, must include figure of you. Okay, must include a figure of you. Okay, so I've got some little subcategories of that. I'm going to give you some choice here, because I really want this to be something that everybody has a different idea, a different approach, different things in it. I want this to be very original. All right? So this could be your silhouette. SILHOUETTE. Well, let's see if I can zoom in. I can't zoom in much more than this. It will be. Yes, I just needed to record it first. Okay, so your silhouette or minimum of 5 gesture drawings. Now, I'm not going to write it down, but those gesture drawings should mostly be of you. Now it can have one or two that are friends or family or whatever, but this is really kind of a more personal project here, so it must be of you. The silhouette has to be of you. If you do just a silhouette, it has to be your silhouette. If you do just gesture drawings, there's a minimum of 5. Most of them have to be of you. Okay? And remember, this is an or. Okay? So the second or is both. Okay? If you do both, there's no minimum gesture. Okay, so if you're already including a silhouette and you want to throw in some gesture drawings too, you can do as many as you want.
So gesture drawings are like the 0.5 minute.
Yeah, but you've got to use this inside of an entire composition. Okay, so I'm trying to give you some options for how you could work with those figures. All right, so the second thing, you have to reference 3, and how did I word this before? Independent project videos. Now, I want to be very specific about that. We started working on the independent project during the second quarter, right? The second grading period. So this independent project is something I've been talking about since about October, all right? Some of you have already watched and worked through some videos. In fact, most of you should have done that. If you have, then you already have those references, as long as it's something you still want to use. Okay, that was part of what I wanted you thinking about. Now, I've thrown a kink in this because I'm telling you now I want you to use a figure in here. So maybe those ones you did before don't work, or you don't think they'll work with a figure. But I'm not asking you to actually do 3 of the videos. If we hadn't lost our 2 weeks, I would be. But we lost 2 weeks with snowpocalypse, or whatever people are calling that. All right? So, yeah, snowvid. So what I want you to do is at least watch 3. You don't actually have to do the project with the video, but you have to at least have watched 3 that you feel like you could use some part of it in this project right here. Okay, so when I say reference, that means you need to remember which 3 it was you watched, be able to tell me a little bit something about it, something like that. Okay, you need to know what it was. So reference to 3. The third thing, and this is super important, it must be original. All right? So this independent project that we were talking about, right here when I said figure has to do with number 1. The number 1 thing is that it's got to have the figure in there. But the rest of this is all independent project stuff. How are you going to use those 3 videos to create an original idea? You are not copying anything from the videos. So for example, if you watched a video and it included doing kind of a landscape stuff that was in a dark black kind of color so that it looked like a silhouette with palm trees and stuff like that, I saw some people doing that, and then some kind of watercolor wash for the sunset, you can't copy it exactly. Do a different kind of landscape in black silhouette. Include the figure in it in black silhouette. It goes right along with it, and then do some other kind of colors and wash for the sky. All right? But then if you do that, that's only 1. So how can you incorporate 3? Because I want this to be original. I don't want anybody, oh, I watched that video. It looks just like it. That's not original. Okay? So you really got to try to blend some ideas together to make this original. And 4, and this one's really important and time sensitive, you have choices and decisions to make, like 2D or 3D. Okay, that's probably the first really big one, but it's not the only one. All right, so up front from that independent project page, there's a lot of 2D options, but we've already worked with cardboard and sculptural type ideas. There's paper sculpture, there was cardboard sculpture. If you had other kind of things that you wanted to build with, you could certainly do that. All right? So as I move on to the other parts for today, I'm going to kind of talk through some of my brainstorming. All right? But your job today is actually going to be to complete the brainstorming list. All right? So I'm going to make another section here. I'm going to move it over a little bit so you can see it. I will put this on Schoology so you can copy it down if you've missed any of it. So this next section here, I'm thinking I'm going to need quite a bit of room to write down my brainstorming. And this would be the next thing I do. And this is going to be the part that you really need to complete today. All right? If you don't complete it today, I'm going to say it's homework. And this is also the part that requires you to actually have viewed and decided what your 3 independent project videos are. All right? So let me just talk a little bit about what I mean by brainstorming. Because this is where it starts to be your original ideas. I'm not asking you to copy down anything I write because I'm not going to put anything in there. I'm going to tell you about some of my ideas. All right? So one of my ideas is actually to use the self-portrait that I drew already. Okay? I had you do it inside of your sketchbooks because I was already thinking towards this kind of an idea. And I wanted you to be able to tear it out and, do something with it if you wanted to. Okay, so your self-portrait could be something that you put in here. All right, so one of my brainstorming ideas is I'm going to use my self-portrait in this project as well. Because this is a personal, we're using ourselves in this. In a way, this is another form of a self-portrait. I'm also going to use a silhouette. But I don't have to just draw my silhouette. I think I'm going to cut my silhouette out of cardboard. And I think I'm going to play with tearing off the top layer of the cardboard, either for the figure portion of the silhouette or for the props in there. So the figure that I want to use, the picture I took, is me sitting in a chair working at an easel. So I'm either going to leave the figure portion with a solid flat, and I'm going to tear off the top layer of cardboard so I have a texture on it, or I'll do that in reverse. Okay, so I'm going to have this cardboard figure. And then I think I want to draw somewhere between 3 and 5 gestures, just kind of randomly around, so that this almost looks like a collage. Okay, a collage with some torn paper, a collage with some cardboard, a collage with some drawing elements in it. I already know that I'm going to include some text. So I want this to kind of be a statement on what this year has been like. All right? Totally, probably stream of consciousness writing all in the background. I may scrub out some of the words so that they look like they've been erased and rewritten, or use sandpaper to rough that up. I may use some watercolor to just kind of design this really random abstract background on there. Okay, so those are just some of my brainstorming ideas that I have from watching some videos and some art techniques that I know to create that. So I would just fill all of that up. Now the next one, the next box that I need to have on here is the one that's going to have to do with materials. So after I've done my brainstorming, should I then have an idea of what kind of materials I might need? based on what based on what I just described, I am probably going to need a piece of mat board. Okay, now I have quite a bit of mat board. This is, I buy this stuff, it's has one side that's for sure got a white surface area, but then I have some that are different colors. They're random. All right, you could use either side. The side that is white is good for, it'll still work for watercolor. It'll have a little bit different absorption on here because it's not specifically watercolor paper, but you could make just about any media work on here. If you want to use chalk, if you want to use oil pastels, if you want to use ink, all of that works on here. Okay? If you want to make some kind of collage and glue different things on here and use mixed media, you can use any kind of media you want. All right? That's where the independent project part of this comes. So I know based on the idea that I have that I'm going to be putting a little bit of my self-portrait on here. I'm going to do a little bit of a silhouette. I'm almost not sure that this is big enough. I'll have to see. I'm going to do some gesture drawing, so I know I'm going to need cardboard. I am probably going to use some ink. I'm probably going to use some oil pastels. I'm going to use some watercolor. I may use some alcohol. So my materials list here includes everything that I think I'm going to need to do based on my brainstorming. All right? Then, not right now. Sit down. Dude, sit down, please. Did you fill out the form? You did? Then I'm not sending you right now. There's how to. Borrow one. Use that computer right there if you need to. All right, so now I have to, and this is going to be the part that's going to lead into tomorrow. All right, but now I've got to come up with at least 3 sketches, 3 kind of ideas and plans for what I think this is going to look like. All right, so one of the things that you have to think about is this going to be a portrait? Is this going to be a vertical design or is it going to be a horizontal design? I'm pretty sure in my thinking that mine is going to be vertical. Now, if I'm drawing this vertically, based on how I've laid out my squares, I can't put another vertical one there unless I draw sideways. All right, so this is just thumbnail number 1. Okay, now because mine is going to be vertical, I'm going to switch over to the other page. Remember, yours does not have to be vertical, but mine is. I'm switching over to the other page. This is going to be thumbnail 2. And this is going to be thumbnail number 3. Now, you don't have to draw these in yet if you don't want to. Okay? If you start, because if you think about our thumbnails here, I've got my brainstorming, I've got my materials. Now, what I certainly want to do in thumbnail number 1 is kind of an overall sketch of what I think this is going to look like. Okay? I want to do an overall sketch of what I think my whole project's going to look like. My second thumbnail, it might be upgrading that, changing it up a little bit if I really liked it, and might be adding a little bit more detail. It might be rearranging the placement of some of the things that I've put in there. Or if I didn't like my idea at all, maybe I'm drawing a completely different idea. All right? My third thumbnail might just be really zooming in on one part of what's going on there and figuring out, really working on the detail on there. Okay? So what I've introduced to you today, the part that you should have finished today, is the brainstorming part, which should include you having watched at least 3 videos and figured out how you're going to use them. Know what those 3 videos are, right? If you don't finish that part, then that becomes homework. Because what I want you to finish tomorrow in class is going to be the 3 thumbnail sketches. All right? So that on Wednesday, you know what materials you need and you are prepared to start. Okay? That is very, very important. So between the rest of the time that we have today and tomorrow, you should finish what I've introduced. So you have the requirements, you're doing the brainstorming today and watching the videos, you're making the list of materials probably tomorrow and doing your 3 thumbnail sketches so that when you come in on Wednesday, you know exactly what you need and you start making the project.